Hi, I'm Amy Chesery, and today we are coloring this spooky page in spooky colors from Season of the Witch by me. So I wanted to color this sort of in spooky blue and green and purple. So I picked out some colors here that you can see: phthalo, blues and greens, cobalt, some different purples, I'm using polychromos pencils, but you could pick any pencils that you have and just do some of your favorite spooky blues and greens. I try to pick like a light shade and then a couple of darker shades of a similar color so I can do the blending. So for the clouds, I'm not thinking too much about the shading other than I'm trying to imagine the light parts in the center sort of coming out towards me. So I'm darkening the edges a little bit where the clouds curve under, and I'm leaving some of the parts a little bit closer to me and wider, so I'm leaving highlights. Then I get a second color of a darker blue, cobalt blue, and I'm darkening just a little bit to add depth. And then basically did the same thing here, but with purple and violet. So I think this one's called manganese violet, and just starting to fill in the shading there a little bit, kind of lightly. And then I don't think I did a second color purple here. I think I just might have used one, but we'll see. Yeah, but I'm not thinking too much about where the light's coming from, more just like it's kind of straight on, and where the clouds are underlapping or going backwards, it's a little darker. And then the highlights are the poofy parts on the front. And you can erase a little bit with these pencils if you haven't gone too dark. But a little bit goes a long way. So there's the poofy clouds. And then for this segment, I kind of wanted to make it a little bit more, well, I can't say realistic, but I was going to make the sky blue and the water purple and green grass and all that. So like a little nighttime scene. And I'm probably going to have to go back and darken the sky quite a bit, but I'm starting with the cobalt blue here just to get a base of the blue color, and then I can go darken it and make it more neutral with black and gray over it. But this actually took a really long time in real life, especially when you want to get it dark. You got to start kind of light and it's a little streaky, and then take your time, especially around the little tree branches and everything like that, and then just blend it all in. And then I'm trying to leave a highlight, kind of a glow around the ghost and the moon. And then a little bit of a gradient on the sky, so it's darker on top and then a little bit lighter on the bottom. Then for the grass, I'm trying to leave some like moonlight highlights on the parts where the moon and the ghost might hit. And then while I'm at it, I'm adding like a tiny bit of yellow highlight just for the glow. On the page, just to remind me where that might be. And then on the opposite side from the highlight, I'm adding the darker greens, and I'm just going to start layering this in. I decided to add a couple darker darks, dark indigo, and then this other really dark blue that has a funny name, but it's like a very, very, very dark blue. And those are going to be like the shadowy side of the hills. And I think I'm going to darken up the sky with those colors as well, just to give it a lot more shadow. So at this part, it really looks pretty colorful and cartoony, and it's going to be colorful and cartoony, but I am going to be darkening it with some more neutral grays and blacks over it. So I think it will kind of tone down the colors at some point. And then here I'm just continuing on with sort of my medium blue, darkening up all of the backgrounds. I decided to make each of these little squares on the page with a blue background just to give them continuity between them. I've seen some other people color each background a different color, and that looks amazing too. So you don't have to do what I'm doing here. But here I'm just quickly adding some more highlights and just coloring the backgrounds blue, a little bit darker in some spots, and then fading to a lighter color. And then same with these funny spiky plants, just coloring the left side of them and then leaving where I think the light is shining on them white. So you see I do leave kind of a bit of white space. Not going into too much detail, I'm looking at a photograph of a skull here to get the placement of some of the shadows correct, because I didn't know it by memory, and that's fine. Same with the pumpkin. I usually darken inside the ridges here, and then I leave the highlight on the top side of the pumpkin. And then I did a really simple jobby on the bat. I just left a highlight over on the right-hand side. So that's just filling in a couple of really simple objects there without much thought to it. Same with this column. I'm making the right side of it darker and the left side where the moon is hitting it lighter. And really just eyeballing where I think some shadows are and a few leaving the highlight spaces. And then with the moon, anything you color dark is like an indentation or a crater, and anything you leave lighter is more of a highlight or a ridge, like a plateau or something sticking up above the surface of the moon. So you can really build some topography. But you can see I sort of left a glow around the edge of the moon and sort of started coloring in some details, and then a general shadow around the edge of the moon too. The ghosty, I didn't want to add too much color to him. I just wanted to leave a lot of white and then slowly add in just a tiny bit of purple or violet to give him a bit of a glow. So I was imagining him mostly lit up by his own lantern. His back is to the moon, and so the front of him is sort of lit up by his lantern and the candles maybe. So I left a lot of white, really, really gentle strokes there on the purple ghosts. And then more on the moon, just kind of blending it all in. I darkened the edge. I left a little bit of white around the edge of the moon and then did a dark layer and then blended back into white. As you can see, if you look at a close-up detail of the moon, it sort of has this outer glow to it, some more shading, and then a big glow in the middle or a highlight in the middle. So I tried to kind of mimic that. For the water, the biggest thing was leaving the highlight for the moon. So when I see water with the moon shining off it, there's a big white highlight, like a stripe, coming all the way down the center. So you'll see I kind of start using my eraser a lot because I keep coloring over that spot, or I maybe color a little too much over that spot. So for each little water segment here, I'm sort of making the bottom of it darker and then leaving a white highlight on some of these little waves, definitely leaving a general white highlight down the entire center portion of the water. And this just took some time. I used maybe 4 different colors of blue and kept switching between lighter, darker, medium blues, and really tried. It was, I'm not going to say difficult, but it really took my attention to leave that white highlight on the top of the water. I really had to visualize it, and I erased a few times and really just focused on leaving that white highlight under the ghost and then coloring blue waves of different blues, maybe leaving a few more highlights on the top of the waves. But I really like how that came out. The water was one of my favorite parts, and I wasn't sure about that when I started it. So this is the experimental portion of the video. I am not using the right tool for the job. This is sort of like a really oily or waxy white pencil thing that I use to mask the line, the black line around the moon. My intention was true to mask the line around the moon, but it ended up causing a little bit of a mess later, so I need to get the right white tool for that. I don't know what that is yet, but when I find it, I will tell you. So here I am just kind of darkening the moon a little bit, trying to fix a little bit of the mess I made with the white masking. It did come out looking cool, like a cool glow around the moon. So no regrets there, but it was just part of the learning process. For the candles, I kept it really, really simple. I just added a touch of blue around the bottoms, and the same with that cute little radish or turnip. For this square too, I just kept it really general. Tried to add some highlights to the letter C and to the pumpkin and leave some shadowy parts there. Really just flowing with it, not getting too detailed with every little square, but just adding some general color around it. Kind of having fun with it and playing with it. Nothing too serious, changing the color, erasing if I wanted to do so. And same with these flowers, just keeping it really, really loose. I definitely could have gone into more detail and done more shading and been more careful with it at this point, but I kind of just wanted to keep it general and finish it up. I chose this nice dark midnight blue for all the borders, so I was pressing really hard here and not being too careful, but it still came out great and just sort of went through and did a very basic color job here. In a minute, you'll see I go through and blend that a little bit from the outline to the square. So I like darken the corners and sort of add a little bit of a vignette to it. But right now I'm just going around and doing all the borders the same color. Of course, you could do these different colors. I just chose to go with the color scheme. And here you can see I'm vignetting a little bit. I'm getting that same dark blue and I'm just very light touch, like almost not even touching the paper. I'm shading and darkening. Same with some green tones here in these dark corners. I'm getting my green pencil or my very, very dark blue pencil and I'm shading in the corners, and the key is just a really light touch. If you don't want to see a line, you just gotta like press on the paper so you don't even see any color coming through, and then start pressing a little harder. So once you can really control your pencil and the lightness of it to dark, you'll see your blending be a little bit better. But don't worry if it's not perfect. It'll be really soothing to attempt. One of my favorite things about coloring is trying to do a nice gradation of light to dark. I find that very soothing. I don't know why. So here too, I'm really just darkening the shadows a lot on the column and then very simply coloring the flowers, highlight on the left, darker on the right. Just that's because of how I see the light of the piece. And you can definitely do more detail on those flowers. I did not. I was more just going quick here to finish up the details, more going for the general effect. Here I realized what a mess I made of the moon, so I'm rubbing off all of that white that I put on, fixing the blue, fixing the white again. It turned out cool, but it was kind of a moment where I was like, oh no, I've made a big mess of this beautiful piece, but just keep going and it'll turn out okay. So here, just more darkening. I've got my darkest pencils now, and I'm adding to the shadows, darkening the parts that I think need just a little more detail, things that are standing out too brightly. I am darkening them in and just adding any finishing touches that I see. Definitely mostly darkening and shadows at this point, little bits of the background that I think should be darker, bits in the corners, lots of shadowy corners, just slowly layering in those shadows and darkening where you see a lot of light popping through or where it was sloppy. I sort of tightened it up. And this is the fun part. You really see it come together, the little bits. It's all the fun part, but this part's fun, really. Maybe this is the most fun part for me. I don't know. I always like the little details at the end. It's all worth it, but it makes it really exciting, I think, to see everything sort of come together. Yes, so there it is, all finished, the whole page coming together, all of my favorite spooky colors together on one page. So I hope this inspires you to color something and not be afraid and just kind of go for it. So whether you use the same colors as me or you pick all your own or something in between, that's awesome. Go for it. So thanks for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it. And if you like this page, I bet you will like the whole book, Season of the Witch. You can find links at coloringbookofshadows.com.